Bartender kicks out. Old man, not knowing he is the bar owner. Jackson leaned against the back counter of Louie's Tavern, rolling his eyes as a group of frat boys hollered for another round. He had worked here for 3 years. 3 long years too many, in his opinion. This wasn't his final destination, just a pit stop until he figured out what came next. The neon lights buzzed overhead, and the jukebox spat out some classic rock hit he didn't care to recognize. He absent-mindedly adjusted the silver hoop earring in his left ear and tightened the hair tie on his man bun, his signature look. Jackson was good-looking, and he knew it. Unfortunately for the bar patrons, his sharp jawline and brooding eyes came with an equally sharp tongue and an obvious distaste for humanity. He sighed and wiped down the counter with slow, exaggerated motions, hoping that if he ignored the customers long enough, they'd go away. It rarely worked. "Hey, bro," one of the frat guys yelled. "Can we get another round?" Jackson flicked his gaze toward them and then down at their table, where empty glasses stood in a sloppy cluster. "You all need water," he said flatly. "Come on, man, we're paying customers." "And I'm the bartender," Jackson shot back. "You know what that means? It means I get to decide if I serve you or not." The guy huffed but didn't press further. That was Jackson's gift, being just dismissive enough to make people hate him but not enough to get fired. It was a fine art. Then the front door creaked open, and an old man shuffled in. He was hunched over, wearing a ragged flannel with holes in the sleeves, his beard a tangle of gray and white. His boots were scuffed, and his jeans had seen better decades. The smell of the streets followed him in, a mixture of damp cardboard and exhaustion. Jackson immediately grimaced. This was a higher-end bar, not some dive that handed out pity drinks. The man took slow, deliberate steps toward the bar and settled onto a stool, his hands resting in his lap. "What can I get you, son?" Jackson asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. The old man met his gaze with a calm, almost knowing look. "Whiskey? Neat?" Jackson snorted. "Yeah, not happening." The old man furrowed his brow. "I got money." Jackson didn't care. He crossed his arms and leaned in. "Listen, old-timer, we don't serve drifters. You want a drink? Find a place that serves soup with it." A few of the regulars glanced over, sensing the tension. The old man pursed his lips, nodded slightly, and slid off the stool. "Fair enough," he murmured before walking back out into the night. Jackson barely gave it another thought. He had done what any self-respecting bartender would do, kept the place from turning into a shelter. A different kind of customer. The next night, Louie's Tavern was buzzing. A few high-rolling businessmen were in, throwing down $100 bills like they were playing cards. Jackson tolerated them more than most since their tips padded his paycheck. He was in the middle of mixing a Manhattan when the front door opened again. Silence rippled across the room. Jackson looked up and almost dropped the bottle of vermouth. The old man from last night had returned, but he wasn't wearing rags anymore. Instead, he was draped in a tailored navy blue suit, crisp and expensive, with a silk tie neatly knotted at his throat. His once matted beard was groomed, and his boots were now polished leather. Behind him, 2 sharply dressed men followed, their posture stiff, eyes scanning the room like bodyguards. A limo idled outside, its headlights glowing through the bar's tinted windows. Jackson blinked, completely thrown. The old man's transformation was staggering, but what hit harder was the reaction of the other patrons. The regulars straightened up and the high rollers suddenly looked less like big shots. The man walked toward the bar with the same slow, measured steps, but this time he wasn't looking down. He was looking directly at Jackson. Jackson swallowed hard, gripping the bar edge. "Whiskey? Neat," the man said smoothly, his voice now carrying a quiet authority. Jackson hesitated but quickly poured the drink, sliding it across the bar. "On the house," he muttered, trying to salvage whatever dignity he had left. The man took the glass, swirling the amber liquid before taking a slow sip. Then he set it down and leaned forward. "Tell me, son, do you know who I am?" Jackson's throat went dry. The man chuckled. "My name is Louis Carmichael." He gestured around the bar, or, as the sign says out front, Louis's Tavern. Jackson's stomach dropped. "I opened this place 40 years ago," Louis continued, taking another sip of his drink. "Worked behind this very bar for decades, built it up from nothing, and last night I walked into my own bar looking to see how things were running. And you wouldn't serve me." Jackson felt sweat beat at his temple. "I didn't know." "No," Louis interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "You didn't. But you didn't have to know who I was to treat me with respect. You judged me, assumed I was worthless, and that tells me everything I need to know about the kind of bartender you are." Jackson opened his mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Louis stood up straight and adjusted his suit jacket. "You're fired." Jackson's world tilted. "Wait, hold on." He scrambled for something, anything that would change Louis's mind. "This isn't fair. You can't just—" "I can," Louis said simply, "and I have." Jackson looked around, desperate for someone to back him up, but no one said a word. The businessmen, the regulars, even the frat boys from last night, all silent. Louis turned to one of his bodyguards. "Make sure he's off the premises in the next 5 minutes." Jackson's pulse pounded in his ears as he backed away from the bar, feeling the weight of his arrogance finally catching up to him. He had spent years treating customers like garbage, thinking himself untouchable. But tonight, karma had ordered its own drink, and Jackson had to swallow it neat. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe.